Okay, we'll begin. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Maharashtra Legal Rights Consortium, which is a part of the National Legal Rights Consortium under Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries, I welcome you all warmly to today's webinar on gender neutral rape laws in Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. The National Legal Rights Consortium stands as a beacon of hope for millions across the nation. Our mission is to ensure justice, rights, and dignity, which must be accessible to all. We strive to make legal rights not just a concept, but a practical reality through advocacy, legal support, and awareness campaigns. Today's discussion is vital as it covers the critical changes introduced in Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. The newly enacted BNS, which replaces the Indian Penal Code, makes sexual offences gender neutral for both victims and perpetrators. This shift is reflected in changes like Section 366B, which now covers the importation of both boys and girls for sexual exploitation. Such changes represent a monumental step towards inclusivity in our legal system. As we move towards making our laws more inclusive and progressive, the BNS has paved a way for gender neutrality in handling sexual offences. We will discuss how this impacts the legal framework surrounding sexual crimes, making protection available to all, regardless of their gender. As a pioneering initiative under the Maharashtra Legal Rights Consortium, we are dedicated to empowering legal professionals and creating a just society through progressive policy dialogues like today's event. We are fortunate to have with us an expert in the field, Advocate Dr. Tejaswi Avhad ma'am, who will shed light on these crucial changes.
Thank you, Ishwari. I would now like to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Advocate Dr. Tejaswi Avhad ma'am. Dr. Tejaswi Avhad, who currently serves as the in-charge principal at Balaji Law College, Pune. She holds a PhD from Ajinkya D.Y. Patil University and has cleared the state eligibility test for an assistant professorship. Her experience includes 6 years as an assistant professor, along with prior experience at Honeywell India in legal policy drafting. A graduate from the prestigious ILS Law College. She completed her LLM in criminal law from Savitribai Phule Pune University. Dr. Avhad has published extensively on gender related legal issues, including notable papers on male rape victimization and gender neutrality in Indian rape laws. Her work has appeared in several UGC Care listed and Scopus Index journals. Beyond her academic contributions, she has served as a legal aid cell coordinator and has organized numerous legal awareness camps in collaboration with the district legal service authorities. She is also a certified internal auditor and has been appointed as chairman and paper setter for various university examinations. With her comprehensive understanding of criminal law, gender sensitization, and legal education, Dr. Abhad is uniquely qualified to guide us through today's discussion on gender neutral rape laws in Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Through today's discussion, Maharashtra Legal Rights Consortium continues its mission to spark essential conversations that move the legal landscape towards greater equality and fairness for all. The advocate Dr. Tejaswi Abhad ma'am, we are honored to have you with us today. The virtual floor is yours. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, clearly.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to thank all the organizers for inviting me for today's session. This is one of the sessions I would say that the topic of such sessions are not easily been discussed openly. Gender neutral rape law has always been a concept which is not open for all, not even for the males, that this should be ever been discussed. Now, starting towards the session, I'd like to divide my session into a few parts. Like initially, I'll discuss what victims are actually. Then we'll go towards the gender neutrality concept. And finally, I'd like to bring to the notice of the audience how international legislations on this concept works. And I'll try to make a comparison with the Indian legislation, which could help us in understanding what is the current need of Indian society. Begin with, When we talk about the concept of victim, what exactly the victims are? Now, the victim, this concept has already been defined under our CRPC. But before it was defined in CRPC, the international convention spoke about what victim is. Victim is a person who individually or collectively had suffered some harm, including physical, mental, emotional, economical, substantial, and so far. When we talk about victim, victims have their own fundamental right. Such fundamental rights are violated, and because of their violation, they become the victim. Now, if we consider this definition of victim and try to insert this under our old CRP, under our old IPC, under section 375, which is current your BNS section 63, which talks about rape. The definition goes hand in hand as in our previous 375, victim is a female. And who is the perpetrator? The male is the perpetrator. Why? Because the definition is very clear. When a man does XYZ things against a female, it has been termed as rape. So here in our legislation, male has always been the perpetrator and female has always been the victim. Now this section is very gender specific. Why? Because it considers only male. It considers only the female as the victim and not as the male. Now, if we make this special reference of male rape victims, we understand that the basic rights that are given by the International Declaration of United Nations, they talk about right to access to justice and right to be heard. These are one of the basic rights that are given to all the victims. But does our legislation accept that male can also be the victim and they have this right of access and right to be heard? Then the answer is no. Now we'll try to understand why did currently we are talking about this male rape concept. So I'll go in a flashback where in 2012 there was an act called as the POCSO, Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. This act came into existence to protect children from any sort of sexual harassment. Now the interesting point under this act is very much gender neutral. Why? Because under section 2, this act has defined what a child is. So a child is any person who is below the age of 18 years. So now if we consider a boy as a child below 18, does it mean that the moment child has accomplished his years of 18, so 18 plus 1 month, he is not to be raped or he is not to be sexually harassed? The child is same, it's only the number that differs. So Supreme Court of India has also admitted this fact that male rape victims do exist in India, and they have been reiterating this fact that in India there is need for gender neutral rape law. Now, why is there this need? So again, we'll move towards the crime. As we all know that crime is a concept, it talks about an offense. Crime has no gender, and therefore even law should have avoided of having any gender. But as we talk our BNS or previous IPC, it is very much gender specific. Victims of rape, they must be given equal protection irrespective of what the gender is. But this is not what is happening in our current legislation. Now we'll again understand what are the theories behind all these concepts. How does this concept of rape evolved in India? We all know that our previous IPC was drafted in the year 1860. It was in Victorian era when this legislation was drafted. The social construct, the theories that prevailed then, based on those theories, we got our IPC or current BNS into existence. Even why did we change our IPC to BNS? The government has given the reason that BNS is something which is based on the current situations, and IPC was drafted in the Victorian era. That is true. Now we'll understand in Victorian era what was the social construct of rape. I've given a few theories on the slide that you can see. Legal theories which I had explored are like evolutionary theory of rape, feminist theory of rape, and so on. Now, I'd like to explain few of these theories. Like when feminist theory of rape was been discussed, it was been researched, we got to know that under this theory, rape was a concept which was totally considered from the angle of a female. Female needs to be controlled by male, and therefore rape was not always for pleasure, but it was somewhere to get the control of that female. And therefore, according to this theory, feminism was the reason why this rape as a concept evolved. Self control theory, in this theory, if you understand, the reason why rape happens was because a male can't control his sexual urges. And this is why he commits rape. If you go to the crime theory, then you understand here that under crime theory, because the accused is of the opinion that the entire world is against me, anyone can come and commit crime against me. So, under this urge, he commits an offense called as rape. So, if we consider all these theories, what we understand is what was the condition of the society prevailing then. Based on that condition, we tried to analyze, and then we had brought this concept of rape. I'll especially talk about the social construction and the Foucault's theory. Now, what these theories talk about, if you understand about the Foucault's theory, then Foucault had got this theory of normalization. And in this theory, what he said was the society has a construction wherein, based on that construction, there are certain role models given to the individuals, like who is a male. Now, this theory doesn't say that biologically XYZ things are, or the organs that a person has, based on that, we define that he is a male and she is a female. But according to this theory, under the society, what are the role, the norms, the rules given to that specific individual that defines who that person is, whether it is a male or female. Like, if we talk about male, they are masculine, they are brave enough, they generally don't cry. There's nothing hurt called as in case of a male. And exactly opposite, it's female. She's very delicate, she cries, she's emotional. These all concepts evolved. And based on this, they had tried to explain the gender. And again, considering this gender, this is how we tried to define rape. So I'm trying to explain these things during the time of IPC, when we initially got IPC into existence. Now, when
I'm so sorry to interrupt, ma'am. Can you please change the mode to slideshow so that the PPT is clearly visible?
Okay, I think it is to slideshow only.
Ma'am, the screen right now is not in the screen which I've shared is not in slideshow mode.
Okay, I'll just reshare.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Now it's clearly visible. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, I was talking about the thematic argument that gender neutral crime, these crimes should be considered against the body of the individual. But how are we considering this crime? We are considering this crime in case of what the gender of that person is. If you talk about rape, rape is a type of crime which has multi-determined acts or multi-determined factors into it. Like, in case of rape, what is the situation the victim goes through? For emotional, physical, psychological, mental, there are n number of things that the victim goes through. Now, the question here is, just imagine, for an example, that not a girl but a boy has been raped. The question arises, do the same condition the boy also faces? Do he goes through the same emotional, mental, psychological shortcomings that any girl may go through? Then the answer is yes. Now, this is not my personal opinion, but this is what research has shown, that there are same determined behaviors which any person may go through if he's been raped. If we talk about India, India has this voluntary agency where we provide n number of facilities to female survivors. We give them counseling, there is medical support, and other things which the government has already introduced. But if we consider a male being raped, are the facilities given by the government? No. Why? Because you basically don't have any offense or any section specifically talking that a male can be raped. And that's the reason that India is lacking these things behind. Now, moving towards the next, why do you feel that there is quest in India that there has to be a gender neutral law? I'll take you again somewhere in the history where the first case in India, was Sudesh Jhanku versus KC Jhanku. I hope my slides are visible now.
Yes, ma'am. Very, very clearly visible.
Okay. So the first case where the Indian judiciary has first time used this term gender neutral was in the case of Sudesh Jhanku versus KC Jhanku. Here Justice Jaspal Singh said that men who are the victims of sexual assault should be given the same protection as that of females. Then it was in the case of Sakshi versus Union of India, where Justice Jeevan Reddy he set up a law commission of India, where the recommendation was given that gender neutral rape law should be consisted in India, where the victims are both genders, may not be the perpetrators, but at least the victims should be considered from both the genders. Then in 2013, there was Justice Verma Committee, who recommended for gender neutral rape law from the context of victims, where gender specific law prevailed in India. Now, what this Justice Verma Committee did was they gave a very good suggestion as to how we can implement gender neutral rape law. So, on my screen, you can see under 375, they had suggested that a person should be replaced. Where currently you see a man doing XYZ, things have been mentioned. There, the term that is to be used should be used a person. Now, if you see even our current legislation under BNS, you see that there are amendments which the section has gone for a very long time, like from the state of Maharashtra case, Mathura case, to the case of Nirbhaya. You can see there are n number of amendments that took place. In 2013, there was a specific criminal law amendment where, under that amendment, it was suggested, rather the amendment based on the ordinance, which it suggested was that the rape law should be gender neutral and we need to change the terminologies to a person instead of a man. We should not specify specific gender, but it should be general for the human beings. But that 2013 ordinance was been struck down because there was opposition made by a number of female organizations, and based on that, it was been struck down. But the point here is, why did the legislatures at that point of time thought that there has to be an ordinance, which they actually got the ordinance into existence? So this is also a point which we need to think on. Now, public interest litigation was also filed by Sanjeev Kumar in 2017 in Delhi High Court, where he has challenged the constitutional validity of 375 of IPC, stating that it is very much gender specific and it should be gender neutral. Then again in 2018, there was an PIL where the Supreme Court had given a landmark judgment in Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India. The Supreme Court believed that victimizing homosexuals was unconstitutional. Constitutional sex between two adults cannot be a crime. Hence, the previous law was declared as irrational. Now, the point is very simple. If you are consenting, a consensual sex between two adults, as it's fine, it's not a crime, then the point is, won't there be a forcible sex between the two adults? But we are not thinking of this. Why? Because under that specific case, we had only declared that this is valid, and provided this is consensual, this is between the four walls, then we have nothing to do with it. It's constitutional. But what on the other side of the coin? That was not being thought at that point of time. Then a bill was introduced in Rajya Sabha by senior advocate KTS Tulsi, where in 2019 he had proposed that the law should be very much gender neutral. Here also the proposal was same, which was given by the Justice Verma Committee, that any man to be replaced with any person. Now, why did this proposal give the specific changes? Then if you compare our current legislation with the Western legislations, which generally India do, so in that situation, we'll understand that this is the similar way where internationally also this crime has been defined. Now, the other reason for this proposal was we protect the child, a male child, till the age of 18 under the POCSO Act. But what after 18? He's not been given protection under IPC or any other legislation. So, therefore, this was the proposal. So, along with the proposal, it was being said that there is a need for critically analyzing the rape law which is enforced in India from the context of male victims. The present law makes us to believe that there are offences which are committed by the gender only, and the victims of such offences are also of a specific gender. So, this conclusion somewhere needs to change. Indian legal framework has to be changed from the angle of who can be the victims and also from the angle who can be the perpetrators. Now, for the comparative study, like we all know that Today we have live-in relations as a valid or constitutional right given by the law based on some Western legislations. Now, the countries that I had taken for my research was United States, United Kingdom, and Canada. Why specifically these countries? Because these countries also follow the adversarial system, same like India does. And therefore the comparison, like the case that I cited, that first case in India for gender neutral, where the word gender neutral was used, was Jhanku versus Jhanku. In that case also we had cited certain legislations of Canada and Australia, which are the adversarial countries. Now, talking about United States, the Bureau of Justice Statistic, they had tracked down their records where they had concluded that yes, there is sexual exploitation of men, and this exploitation is almost equivalent to that of the female. Same analysis was done in Canada also, where they came up with the conclusion. In fact, under their analysis, they had come to the knowledge that there are different types of rapes, though it is not a codified law with these types, but the purposes for which the rape is done, like a stranger rape. Stranger rape is a person where randomly some person comes and rapes that. Why? Because the accused is the stranger to the victim. Then there was a concept called as the date rape. Like there are two persons who had gone for a date, and in that situation, a rape was been committed. Or there was a third concept where corrected rape. In this cases where gay was specially been raped. Why? Because gay needs a correction within himself, that he should consider himself as a male and not as a gay. And for that correction, this was a type of rape called as the corrected rape. So, if you understand the international legislations, there are various purposes for which the rape has been committed. Like I initially also did talk about this, that in India also, if you consider rape, rape is not the concept only for the sexual pleasure. It is to overpower a victim. It is to make that victim feel that you are vulnerable. So there are n number of reasons for which this rape happens. Now, to cite a few cases, there was a famous case in Canada, Cicero Rose case, where she was been she was been punished by the legislation there for the sexual abuse that she has done to a male in Chicago. Now, this is again to the next level, I would say, where a female is raping a male. Though currently in India, we are only debating on the topic who the victim should be. Along with the female, the victims can be male, they can be the third gender person. This is what currently we are still debating in India. But at the international level, you can see the perpetrator, the role of the perpetrator is also being played by a female. And this is what has been seen, like in Cicero Rose case. Now, if you understand the UK legislation, Section 1 of that legislation defines what rape is, where it is very much clear that the rape is a gender neutral concept. Now, again, I like to mention here all the countries that I have chosen. These countries initially had same legislation that is prevailing in India, where it was very gender specific crime, where male couldn't be raped, the third gender couldn't be raped. It was only the female who was being raped. But slowly and gradually, with the changing need of the society and the time, the activities changing in the society, the law also changed. Moving on to the next, like I just mentioned about UK and US. Canada also has the same legislation, where the criminal code of Canada under section 271, it has defined that female and male both can be, male and female both can be the survivors of rape. Now, there was a famous case again. Landon, he was one of the rape survivor. He he stood in the TEDx. I hope you all know that there is a TEDx talk where people come and talk about the things that they have been through in their life. So here, Landon, he was a rape survivor. He was been raped multiple times. Being a male, he couldn't accept the feeling that he was being overpowered by someone else, and that not once but a multiple time. He was in a situation where he was not in a position to tell his mom that
So sorry for the technical glitch. We will wait for 2-3 more minutes for everyone to rejoin and then we can resume. I'm so sorry, ma'am. There was some technical error.
Okay, should I start?
Yes, ma'am. I think we can resume.
Okay. Like I was discussing the case of Landon. He is one of the rape survivor where he had to gather the entire courage first to make himself realize that yes, being a male, he was being raped, and second, it was very difficult for him to share this feeling of inferiority, his emotional, psychological thing that he was going through with his mother and also with his girlfriend. Finally, somehow he gathered all the courage, and on TEDx, he came up with the entire thing that he has been through for a number of times. Now, this I think it is there today also available on YouTube, which you guys can go through. Then, in the case of People versus Yates, Justice Shia, she recognized the presence of male rib trauma syndrome. Now, this is a syndrome which medically, if a person like any person in depression, he has n number of syndromes he's going through. Similarly, in case of rape, the person goes through a specific trauma which medically is called as the male rib trauma syndrome. So this is something which has already been recognized in Western countries. So considering the legislations of US, UK, Canada, it gives us a clear picture that the rape law somewhere earlier was very much gender specific, but as per the changing need of the society, today they have a legislation which protects all the citizens of their nation, irrespective of the fact whether that person is a male, female, or third gender. Now, how is India responding to the international jurisprudence that we have been through? Now, if you understand what the international jurisprudence is, like there are n number of conventions to which India is also a signatory. Considering those conventions and the logic behind which how we draft our legislations, so generally, criminal law is based on the biological and sociological gender of human bodies, and based on that, today we understand that biological gender is given more importance. Why? Because it's considered that female are weak, they are vulnerable, and therefore it is somewhere easy for a male to overpower the female, and this is how the crime happens. Even in gang rapes also, this is the condition how it's happening. But if we consider morality as the background based on which India has n number of legislations, so considering morality also, what is morality speaking? Then according to that morality, who is a man is a person who is masculine, who is a female, she is a person who is feminine. And what about LGBT? Then until few years, at least today, we have certain legislations where LGBTQ have been recognized to some extent, but to few years they were type of corrupt people where there was no place for them in India. We all are aware of when we talk about LGBT. It's recently that India has got into certain legislations for their protection. But before that, There wasn't. But do it mean that these people were never there in India before that specific year? Presuming in 2019 we got few legislations for them. Even if you see in the history, in your Mahabharata, in your Ramayana also, you find these LGBT character lying in that mythologies also. Talking about the case of Usha Mehta versus territory of Andhra Pradesh, here also there was a proposal given where the criminal law needs to be amended, where again this proposal was based on any man and any woman. These things needs to be changed to any person. Why? The basic reason behind this was also that fundamentally, what are we spotlighting on? Then we as a nation, we as parliament, we as regulators, we are spotlighting on what justice is, what human dignity, equality, and liberty is. And when we talk about all these concepts are equal to all the victims, irrespective of what gender they are having. Again, there is an interesting example where 376D of our previous IPC, this talks about gang rape. Now here, the definition given under gang rape is very much gender neutral. Why? Because the word person is being used instead of a man. So it technically means anyone who is involved under this act can be punished irrespective of their gender. Let that be a male or that be a female. So, victim, this word or this term was finally defined under CRPC with an amendment. Why? Because we had entered into a convention, and based on that convention, this concept of victim, like for last few years, India is more concentrating on the victim's part. Earlier, if you see, our legislation was not focusing on the victims, but after these amendments, more victimized or more towards the victim, we are getting legislations. Now, there are international, like I spoke earlier also, there are international conventions, the UDHR, the International Convention on Civil Political Rights. These all conventions, they conclude that there are fundamental human rights which are awarded to human beings. And if I talk about victim, under IPC, that victim can be of any gender, and same human rights are given to that gender also. So technically, based on all these international declarations, India should be protecting all the victims. Every single person on this planet should be given the respect of human existence, independent of their natural sex, social gender, sexual direction, so that their fundamental social liberties can be considered. This is what I need to conclude on. Now, to conclude, I will like to give certain conclusive pictures, like you can see on the screen. Rape in India is very specific. A man is always an accused, and a victim is always the opposite gender, that is a female. If you see in United States, then it is very much gender neutral. Why? Because in case of accused, it is any person, and in case of victim, again it is any person, which is gender neutral. And here at the last, you can see it is act of penetration. It is not only talking about vagina, but it's also anus or any object that can be penetrated, which though India has got this amendment after the Nirbhaya case. Talking about Canada also, it's very gender neutral. Why? Because the words a person and any person has been used. Same goes with the United Kingdom also. Here, a person who commits is an accused. So now in United Kingdom, you can see here the penetrator or the perpetrator is always a male. But in case of victims, it is gender neutral, where victim can be a male or a female. So today India is struggling for this concept to get in, where the perpetrator can be male. But in case of victims, at least, not only the females, but also a male, a person belonging to the third gender, he should also be considered as the victim. And accordingly, we need to get a legislation which could help all the victims in India. So with this, I conclude. Anyone having any questions can please go ahead.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that insightful presentation. I think we've all been very involved in the way you have talked about these topics, which really need to be talked about because they're not quite often discussed on such platforms. So we're very, very grateful for your inputs and your insights. Now we will open the floor for questions, and please feel free to either type your questions or raise your hand. And once we recognize you, you may ask your questions to ma'am. So if there are any questions, we will take them now. Does anyone want to ask questions orally? If you want, please raise your hand. We will recognize you. Okay, until there are questions being typed. Okay, there's one question in the chat box, ma'am. I'll read it out for you. Um, Ma'am, can you throw some light on the POXO Act? Isn't it gender neutral and secures right of all children?
Yeah, I just mentioned the same act in my presentation also. The problem with the POXO is yes, it is gender neutral, but there is an age limit for the act, which talks about the minors. Now, my example that I have given was, let's presume that a child till 18 he's been protected under the POXO Act. What after 18? If his age is 18.1, and he's been sexually abused, where is he going to go for protection? He can't be considered under POXO because the age limit has already been expired. Then where he should be taken care of? There is no specific legislation. Like earlier, at least you had 377, that's unnatural offenses in your previous IPC. But though that was not sufficient to take care of, and currently you don't even have the 377 under BNS.
Thank you, ma'am. I think that answers the question. We'll take the next question from the chat box. How rational is it to generalize the concept gender non specific victimization of rape crime?
See, talking about the rationality, I do understand when we speak about India and we try to compare this with the international countries, it can't be compared on a 100% basis. But we can't forget this fact that we have consented for consensual sex between two adults. And the simple part of the opposite coin is, if you have permitted for consensual sex, can't there be a forceful sex? Of course, it can be. And that also needs to be recognized by our legislation. So, this is what I feel.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for answering that question. The next question in the chat box is by Sanjeev ji. He asks why emasculation is kept as grievous hurt and not in rape as sexual disability in terms of the sentence which is given.
Sorry, just repeat the question.
Yes, ma'am. Um, why is emasculation why emasculation is kept as grievous hurt and not in rape as sexual disability in terms of the sentence which is provided?
Okay, now, like I spoke earlier also, our IPC was drafted in the Victorian era. And from then itself till now, there are like changes, amendments that we had come with. But emasculation has always been a concept. That is the weapon that has been used under the offense, under 375. And therefore, it is considered not in 375, but as a separate crime.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope it answers that question. Um, the next question is by Kaustup. Does the push for gender neutral laws in India risk undermining protections meant for vulnerable groups, particularly women, or is it necessary step towards true equality considering the evolving dynamics of gender identity?
Yeah, I think the second part that you mentioned is true. See, only because it is going to risk someone is not the reason that India can't come up with the legislation. You pick any legislation, I'll give an example of 498. Those legislations are also been misused, but still they prevail because where it comes to protection, protecting the citizens, that's the requirement. And therefore, I feel the second part that you have mentioned, that's true.
I think I completely agree with you, ma'am. Just because there is some kind of misuse does not mean we can stop protecting all the vulnerable groups that need to be protected. I think that should be the aim of all the laws. And now let us move on to the next question. Okay, this is on the social aspect of it. Does the Me Too campaign on social media be a valid reason for rape case, and has it been done in the past?
Me Too is not been recognized anywhere by law. We all know that when it comes to media, media has a very different stand, and law considers media totally different. So I don't think so there is any comparison, or that also need to be discussed. Why? Because Me Too is something which has been started by females at a very later stage, uh, where there is no base for it in law.
Hmm. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt, but there are some questions that were left out. Um, like from Akriti Mishra, she has asked, "Ma'am, are there any measures the government has taken for gender rape laws?"
No, currently there are no measures. Like I mentioned in the presentation, there are certain petition like bills. There are certain bills that have been presented in the parliament which are pending. So currently there are no measures taken by the government.
Yes, ma'am. I think that answers your question, Akriti. And then again, one question was left out by Daksh Singh. He's asking why women organizations are opposing the gender neutral acts to be implemented in India. How can we counter them?
Sorry, why they have been? You are not audible.
Why women organizations are opposing the gender neutral acts to be implemented in India? How can we counter them?
Okay. I won't say that without any reason they are opposing. There is a valid reason for them to oppose. But like I told you, when you talk about vulnerability, females are vulnerable. I don't say they are weak, but yeah, they are vulnerable because of a modesty and many things. We put ourselves into vulnerability. Same goes with the other genders also. They also can be vulnerable. Only because females are opposing, that can't be a valid reason. I won't say that you have to fight back when the females are opposing. The specific concern of female organization was, if we come up with this legislation will be misused at a higher level. But my point is, you show any legislation which has not been misused. There are legislations which have been misused, but still, for the protection's sake, we are currently continuing with the legislation with a number of amendments also at various levels to make sure that the legislation should fairly be used by the public at large. So female organization, they have this fear that maybe this legislations may be misused at a higher level. And I feel unless and until we don't give this awareness both to male and female and also to the third gender, these things are not going to change. Unless and until India changes its mentality, things are not going to change.
Yes, ma'am. Kaustubh Verma is saying that there was another part to his question. Can you please unmute yourself and make it clear, Kaustubh?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yes, ma'am. So the third part of the question was, ma'am, because still many cannot differ in woke culture and a person that needs true help. What are your views on that part of the question?
Okay, though I couldn't hear him clearly, but I think he was asking that if something happens with any of the male, how can he seek any help, right?
No, ma'am. Let me read it aloud. Because still many cannot differ in woke culture and a person who actually needs true help. What are your views on that on base of gender equality?
Okay, if a person needs help in actual situation, in case of gender neutral laws. Now the problem, like I told you earlier also, even if a person approaches a police station for registering an offense that had happened with him, a sexual assault that had happened, there is no specific section under which we can register. But why the presentation that I gave, why did so many researchers got so many data? Then today also under NCRB, if you go for data, you will find that kidnapping cases of male. What is the reason behind that kidnapping? There are like, if I remember rightly, in 2013 there was a data that more than 500 males were being reported to be kidnapped, and the specific reason behind that was the illicit intercourse. Matlab, the purpose for the kidnapping was very much specific. So in this situation, we can actually analyze that yes, on a silent level, there are such offenses that have been committed, and there is actually no help that we can give them. Yeah, but other part, I can tell you that there are many organizations, like the current organization is working for women. There are other organizations also which are working for male. So there are male movements that are going on currently where these organizations are helping specific victims to come out through this.
Thank you so
Ma'am,
much.
thank you, ma'am. I think there are a lot of questions on the lines of marital rape and how marriage is falsely claimed on the pretext of sexual intercourse, and why and how
Yeah,
can it be
I'll
gender
just
neutral?
these 2 points that you mentioned, marital rape, and the second point is false pretext. Now, for the
Yes,
false
ma'am.
pretext, the good thing is under BNS you already have a specific section which talks about that it is a criminal offense for which you can be punished, though it is not termed as a rape. Why? Because it is a consensual thing that happens in false pretexts. And the second one, marital rape, again, like today I'm giving you a presentation on gender neutral rape law. Apart from this, there are many researches going on. Well, marital rape also needs to be considered. And based on that researches, maybe after few years, we may have some amendment.
Yes, ma'am. We can only hope and pray that it goes the way that we want it to.
No,
Uh,
I'm positive about it. Why? Because we had amendment already where the age, like the exception under 375, where the woman is the wife. In that situation, the age has already been amended by the government. Earlier it was 15, now it is 18. So we are always having hopes that maybe after few years we may have a legislation where this concept has been considered.
Yes, ma'am. And maybe this domino effect of positive change will go on in other legislations also. We have so many legal professionals here, so I think this question becomes very relevant. How do you think legal education programs will better equip future lawyers to address the complexities of gender neutral provisions in sexual assault or sexual intercourse related crimes?
um, you guys are the best example, I would say. You are an women organization, but the topic that I have chosen is totally opposite of that, but still we are here on the common platform with a very vibrant discussion. This is what awareness we are trying to give it to the society at large. So even the legal departments where you guys have been educated, your colleges, everyone go for awareness. And I think awareness is the footprint through which we can reach till the actual amendment in law.
Thank you so much, ma'am. If there are any further questions, I think we can take them via the feedback form and we'll reach out to ma'am and hopefully the questions will be answered.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, before you close up the session, I'd like to thank you all. Why? Because this topic is very close to my heart. I have been researching on this topic for a very long period of time. In fact, my PhD is also on the same topic. I really congratulate you all as an organization where you came up with this concept that you can actually discuss this topic, which is not actually a field where people like to go for discussions. So I congratulate you that you organize such a good session where we can discuss on very different topics. So good work you all are doing. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Uh, Suruchi, do you have a question to ask? Okay. I think we can move on.
Okay.
Thank you, Ishwari and Shreya, and a big thank you to Dr. Avhad for sharing invaluable expertise with us today. I'm Ashrita Nair, Vice President of Maharashtra Legal Rights Consortium, and it's my privilege to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of Maharashtra Legal Rights Consortium. I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to all the participants for joining us today and making the webinar a success. We hope the insights shared today will help you navigate the complexities of gender neutral rape laws more effectively. I would like to thank our National President Vaishnavi Murthy and Maharashtra Legal Rights Consortium President Nandini, our team of National Council members, and all Maharashtra Legal Rights Consortium members for being the backbone of our organization and for leveraging our work ethics, commitment, and passion for the citizens of our country. Lastly, a special thank you to our organizing committee, moderators, and the technical team for making today's event possible. Thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you at our future events.
Thank you so much, everyone. Please take a moment to fill our feedback form, which will help us to improve our future sessions. And we will try and get back to you with all the questions or inquiries, queries that you have. So, thank you so much and have a great day ahead. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a wonderful session, uh, very passionately delivered. And I think that I speak for all when I say that we are taking a lot of insights with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Everyone, please check the chat box and please fill the feedback form. We would really appreciate your remarks and feedback. Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you have accessed the form, you may leave the meeting. Any further communications, if required, will be done via the announcement group or through mails. So please access the feedback form and then you may leave the meeting. Have a great day. Thank you. Yes, Netra.
Just a humble request. Is ma'am going to share PPT with us? Because this information was really useful and it would definitely help us to get more insights while we go through the PPT. So, is it
Ma'am,
any possibility?
yeah, we will just ask ma'am for the PPT and if she can share. If she does, we'll make sure that it reaches you.
Yeah,
So,
that would be of great help. That is one thing. And another thing I would like to ask that, ma'am, while delivering the lecture, she just mentioned that her topic of research for her PhD was also on the similar lines. So, if in that case, if whatever the papers she has published and whatever the research work she has published on the different journals or some other, if we can get the list of it, so we can go through those journals also, and so we can get more insights related to topic, because if that could be the similar lines topic of research for us also, so it would help us definitely to get more insights on it.
yes,
We
ma'am.
know
Yes,
all
ma'am.
the work, but then the list of her works, her
Yeah.
publications, wherever she has put across her publications or the research paper. So the access to those things, if that is only already public thing, so if we can get
Yeah.
access to that, it would be of great help.
Yes, ma'am. I'll check with my team if we can compile the list of our publications and circulate it with you all.
Yeah,
I'll,
that would be
yeah, I'll
really a great step forward to this particular session, actually.
Yes, thank you so much. Please make sure that you also write this in the feedback form so that we are reminded of it once we go through the feedback
So I
form as
have already submitted that feedback
well.
form. But then
Oh, okay, no
definitely,
problem.
yeah. But then definitely, if you want, I could put across into the group, the common group, what we have, a request
Uh,
again.
yes, ma'am, sure. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Let me just also remind you that your participation certificates will also reach you along with your feedback form. As in, once you submit the feedback form, you will receive your participation certificates accordingly. So please make sure that you fill it out. If there are no further doubts, I think we can close the meeting. Thank you so much.